Thank you very much, and also thank you very much to my colleagues from EURAXESS China for allowing us to be here, and to all of you who are participating here for joining to see our presentations. So I'm going to also share my screen right now. I will be using a PowerPoint presentation to try to give you a bit of an overview of recruitment opportunities for researchers in Spain, and how we do it from the foundation. And well, I mean, there will be plenty of information in terms of publication dates and salaries and things like that. So I will probably not be able to stop very much in those parts of information, but I'm sure you will get the slides afterwards, so you will have everything there. So to start off, I'm Xavier Eekhout. I work at the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology. This is a foundation which belongs to the Ministry of Science and Innovation currently. We've been around since 2001, and we've had this mission about making a closer link between society and science. And that includes a number of different areas in which we work, and I highlight 3 of them there. One is open inclusive science and scientific culture and education. And the one which brings me here, which is supporting the Spanish research development and innovation system towards its openness and internationalization. So how are we doing that from the side of the foundation, from FECIT? Well, we're doing it precisely because we are the national coordinators in Spain for the EURAXESS initiative, which my colleague Ana has already mentioned. So when you're looking for opportunities for coming to Spain, obviously the first thing that I will say, having this EURAXESS hat that I have, is you can go to the portal that Ana has already mentioned, and you can actually look for positions there which are available in Spain. I'm happy to say that Spain is actually a country that makes extensive use of the EURAXESS jobs portal. So there are plenty of research opportunities being published there continuously. Although I'll also say that most of these these job offers are normally related to European projects and fixed-term contracts. But nevertheless, I mean, if you're looking for a potential place where to do your research here in Spain, or to have a collaboration, definitely the EURAXESS jobs portal would be the first stop. And then specifically thinking in the kind of content that we have as EURAXESS Spain within our national portal, I'd like to focus, and all of my presentation is going to be structured around a section which we call Science in Spain, and which is let's say the most popular section, for obvious reasons, of our national portal. I'm going to start off by showing this section of Science in Spain is made up of several documents which we renew every year, but definitely let's say the jewel of our crown, our pride, is what we call Career Path in Spain at Glance, Research Career Path in Spain at Glance. This is a document which you can see a screenshot there, as well as the link for direct download, but you can also find it in EURAXESS Spain. Basically, what we have in this document is a representation of what would be the traditional research career in Spain, which is the upper part of the document. And underneath each of those career stages, we map every year the calls which are open at national, at European, at national, and at regional level. This is a document which we renew every year. So the 5th edition has just been published about 3 weeks ago, I think. And as I said, what we do there is that we map all the calls which are open or which are expected to be open along the next year. This is a little bit of a detail of what the document looks like. So as I said, in the upper part, you have could be the traditional research career paths that you could follow in Spain. And then underneath, we map each of those programs. And most importantly, each of these boxes and each of these programs has a link, an internet site on the back, where you can find the additional information about these calls. I will go a little bit from the European, make a bit of emphasis on the national, and then mention a little bit about the regional calls. So on the side of the European calls, you're probably going to be very familiarized with the main ones that we highlight as recruitment opportunities to work in Spain using European funds, which is either the Maris Sklodowska actions, the individual fellowships, as well as the co-fund programs, and the European Research Council. I'm by no means any expert in any of the programs, but actually what I do offer you here, and it's part of the work that we also do from FEFIT, is that we have the national contact points of both of these programs within the foundation. So you will have there the contacts in case you have any question about trying to benefit from a Marie Sklodowska action or from an ERC grant here in Spain. In regards to the Marie Sklodowska Curia actions, the individual fellowships, I'd like to highlight that we, in Spain, like in many other countries, but it's not the case of all of them, we do a lot of promotion to the research groups in Spain to try to get them to publish what we call expressions of interest in the hosting database of EURAXESS. What this means is that when we start to get close to the deadline of an individual fellowship call, research teams in Spain are invited to publish their expressions of interest looking for candidates to prepare a proposal for an individual fellowship. So if you're interested in looking for an individual fellowship, this is definitely a place where you could look for potential research teams in which you could integrate to apply for one of these grants. As I said, the other possibility related to Marie Sklodowska actions, which involves the recruitment of researchers, are the co-fund programs, which are this European funding is used to co-fund, as its name indicates, programs for PhD candidates as well as for postdoctoral researchers. There are several of these. Spain is also reasonably successful in applying for co-fund. So we have every year we have a number of co-fund programs running in Spain, which again offer opportunities for researchers to be recruited at PhD level or a postdoctoral level. Currently, we have this map also in the national portal, which you can see there. We try to keep it updated with the programs which are currently ongoing and which have plans of publishing recruitment calls. Alternatively, of course, you can also find part of this information, or maybe the same information, depending if it has been published by the people running the co-fund programs, in the EURAXESS jobs portal also. Because as Anna was mentioning, you can browse looking for specific countries, you can browse looking for specific disciplines, but you can also look for specific programs, and one of them is the co-fund. So between the map in Spain and also looking for the EURAXESS jobs database, you could have the opportunity of identifying recruitment opportunities in Spain funded by Marie Sklodowska co-fund programs. And then I'll do a bit more of emphasis on some of the national calls. So first of all, I'll mention that we have this would be currently the public research funding bodies that you would have. The first one would be the State Agency of Research, la Agencia Estatal de Investigación, which I will be providing a bit more of information of the calls that the agency manages. I will also mention the calls which are managed by the Ministry of Universities, and I will simply mention here and not go into the details of the other two funding bodies, which would be the Instituto de Salud Carlos III, which runs a number of programs which include research, human resources, recruitment possibilities, but linked specifically to the health area, so to medicine. And last but not least, we have the FEDETI, which also belongs to the Ministry of Science and Innovation. And this is the main funding body in Spain for enterprises, for industry and for the private sector. And as of today, they do not have any research, any calls which are specifically for the recruitment of researchers or for human resources and research. So I will provide details about the two first ones. And this would be the main programs that you would have. We will have several calls for PhD candidates that I will tell you with a bit more of details right next. And then we would have for postdoctoral researchers the Romano Cajal contract, Beatriz Galindo, and the Juan de la Cierva. And I will provide, as I said, a bit more of information. At the level of the PhD candidates, we have three main calls. The one which is called for predoctoral training for future university teachers, which, as the name states, is specifically for universities. It is managed by the Ministry of Universities. These are 4-year training contracts, so they're working contracts, which have the aim of working on a PhD and the ultimate aim of training future university professors or teachers. You have there a bit of practical information. The salary ranges from 1,100 to 1,500 euros per month, and this is increasing as the years go by. So from 1 year to year 4 of the contract. And in order to have a bit of a sense, because these calls that I'm going to mention are published periodically, but as you know, that periodically fits in the public system, sometimes gets impacted by changes of government and things like that. So I will provide some dates of the last calls as well as the previous to have a bit of a reference of when the future calls, these calls, are expected to be published. So in the case of the calls for predoctoral training for future university teachers, the last call published was in October 2019. And it granted around 150 contracts. So in order for you to have an idea of the size of the opportunities that these programs offer. Previous calls as references, they were also at the end of the 2018 and end of 2017. So what does this mean is that we hope that by the end of 2020, so along the next months, this call could be open. The next public call that would help any researcher to work on their PhD is what we call the Predoctoral Training for Researchers, FPI. These are very similar to the FPUs, to the previous ones, but more aimed at research performing organizations. The conditions are quite similar. So you have 4-year contracts. Annual salary is around 21,000 euros. And in this case, the last calls was published rather recently. I mean, it actually closed a few days ago, from on the 27th of October. And it's expected that with the budget granted, it would grant 1,100 contracts for researchers to work on their PhDs in Spain. So again, as a reference in terms of timing of this periodicity, the previous calls were published in October 2019, 2018, and in September 2017. So these there are big efforts to try to keep this call as regular as possible. And last but not least, in order to work on the preparation of a PhD, we have a smaller call for the moment, which is the industrial PhDs. Again, it's 4-year contracts to work in industry, in enterprises, to work on your PhD in companies. This is a co-funding mechanism. So the grant, you have there the references of which would be the maximum that would pay. So around 16, it would cover around 16,000 euros per year of the salary, which means around maximum of 70% of the salary. So the rest would be complemented by the company that would hire the PhD candidate to work on the industrial PhD. In terms of timing, the last publication was officially the one of 2019. But it actually meant that the call officially closed on January 2020. So this means that, previous calls were basically on the same period. So the call from 2017 closed on January 2018. The call of 2018 closed on January 2019. So hopefully there will be also, this call will be opening quite soon in the following months. And now we jump into national calls which fund postdoctoral stays. The first one would be Juan de la Cierva, which actually has 2 different levels, which is Juan de la Cierva Formación and Juan de la Cierva Incorporación. The first one is for postdoctoral researchers with little less, let's say, early postdoctoral researchers. The last call was from 2019 also, like in the previous call, actually closing the deadline on 2020. It covers 20,000 euros per year, although the institutions can complement this salary through co-financing. And just as a practical measure, consider that the Juan de la Cierva are officially presented by the institutions, so you need to have already the contacts made in the organizations in order to apply for these programs. In the case of Juan de la Cierva Incorporación, they're pretty similar, but in this case it's for a little bit more advanced postdoctoral researchers. We're talking about 3-year contracts in this case. The last call, like the previous one, it opened in the same period, and the funding granted to each beneficiary is a little bit higher, so around 29,000 euros per year, with the benefit of 6,000 euros per year for other direct costs that could facilitate implementing the research activities of the researcher in this company. And like in the previous one, it's expected that the organization which will hire the beneficiary will co-finance the salary for a higher salary. Then we have the Ramón y Cajal calls, which is probably I would dare to say the most prestigious national call for postdoctoral researchers in Spain. It's also a call which we can identify as a 10-year track contract. It's 5-year contracts for researchers, which fund around 33,000 euros, with also 40,000 euros of other direct costs in order to allow the researcher granted to devote it to his or her research. In addition, as I mentioned, this is a 10-year track program. The program also offers the institutions in which the Ramón y Cajal will be working for 5 years under this contract. It offers them 100,000 euros to support the stabilization of the researcher granted by the Ramón y Cajal. Then we have the Beatriz Galindo, which, like in the case of the predoctoral grants, is somewhat an analog to the Ramón y Cajal, but for the universities. This has a very particular focus about attracting researchers abroad, meaning Spanish diaspora researchers, but also foreign researchers with excellent research background, to attract them to Spanish universities. These are 4-year contracts, which go between 50 and 90,000 euros per year. And in terms of the timing of the call, the last call was 2019. Sorry, I think I have an error there. Which means that it was officially closed on February 2020. So we expect that at the beginning of next year, it will be when the Beatriz de Galindos will be open for presenting proposals. There are 2 categories depending on the amount of time, the amount of research experience that the candidate has in another country, in another institution in another country. The Beatriz de Galindo Junior are for postdoctoral researchers with less than 7 years of experience abroad, and the Beatriz de Galindo Senior are for researchers with more than 7 years of research experience abroad. And then finally, for postdoctoral researchers, we have the Torres Quevedo program. The aim of this program is for recruiting doctors also in the private sector, meaning companies, including spin-offs of universities and public research performing centers, technological centers, innovation support centers, business associations, and science parks. In this case, we're talking about 3-year contracts for PhD holders, so for postdocs, with a grant which varies depending on the proposal, but in the last call, the maximum granted was around 38,000 euros per year, which means 70% of the salary. So the rest is co-financed by these organizations which hire the PhD, the doctor. The last call was also officially from 2009, but closing in early 2020, following the similar track in the previous year. So again, this is another call which hopefully will be open between December, January, February 2021. And last, I'll mention that the last the last research recruiting opportunity, in this case in the consolidation stage, so it's already for distinguished researchers, is precisely these contracts to distinguished researchers, which are normally aimed at opening new research lines or running research teams or running infrastructures in the public research organizations that are part of the Spanish R&D system, which are listed there. And these are, up until now, there have not been periodic calls, because it's a little bit, let's say, ad hoc. So if the institutions need it, they should, they have to try to apply for this. But again, as a reference, the last call which was open was in April 2019, so not very long ago. And in total, it offered 44 positions for these distinguished consolidated researchers. And then I'll mention, in this case, I will invite you to go and download the research path, because there's quite a lot of information and it's impossible to go detail by detail, because although we've compiled the information, I don't know it by memory, to be honest. In the research path, you have all the regional calls. And I'll mention that there are a number of programs which are or tend to be somewhat periodic, and some of them really, really powerful in different regions, which are run by the regional governments. So we make a particular effort in the career path every year in keeping these calls updated. And that even means, in some cases, it's not completely sure that some programs that have been running for a few years are going to be repeated, for example, in this year. But still, if there is a chance that that will happen, we still keep it there. So we wait until at least 2 years have passed in which a program has not had any publications of calls to remove it from the career path. So we prefer to have an excess of information, as I said, with all the links and so on, than losing any of the opportunities. And then since last year, since the 4th edition of the career path, we've been increasing a little bit what we call other professional options. So there are other funding opportunities, either funded at national by the federal government at national level or by regional governments, which are for other professional options for researchers. So we've also been including more and more of these calls, which you can also find in the research path, in the research career path. And last but not least, we also have the private funding opportunities, which are not too many in Spain, but they are there. And as I said, every year we make sure that these calls are going to be published, or there are plans to being published, and we include it in this document. So you can also find some research recruitment opportunities funded by private funding opportunities. And last, I was going to mention, but I'm not going to go into detail because Antonio will be talking about it as he is part of this network. The SOMA Alliance. The SOMA Alliance is basically the association of the research excellence centers and units in Spain, which are granted by a specific call. But as I said, Antonio will be providing more information, and the only thing that I'll mention here is that through the granting of this seal of excellence, they also receive additional funding due to their excellent research performance, and that, of course, is translated into additional recruitment opportunities in regards to other research organizations. So it's also a good practice to keep an eye on the SOMA website to identify research opportunities in these research excellence centers. And that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Xavier. I think we are very lucky here today to have you presenting all the different calls. And also, I don't think that all the other countries that are part of the ERA are doing such a great job for collecting all this information about the different calls and make them available for the researchers who are interested in Spain. So that was great. Thank you very much.